So welcome to another episode of Journeys. Today is a very special one because we have a living magical legend in our midst. It is, of course, the one, the only Mr. Michael Vincent. So, Michael, you've got no idea what this is. You've actually just come into the shop.
Yes.
And Pete's nabbed you and put you in this chair.
Oh, that's what happens when you come to Alakazam Magic.
That's literally what happens. So, we're going to take you on a mini journey.
Okay.
Okay, this is a mini journey through your life in various stages.
Okay.
So the first question I have is, at one point there was a stage in your life where you decided to turn pro. To turn into a professional. So go from like a hobbyist or a different job into a full-time
professional magician.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, I was a postman for 6 years.
Wow.
Delivering mail. 1991, and I got called in the office one morning and they terminated my contract.
No way.
I got the sack.
Wow.
I got the sack and too much time off, and that night I'm doing my show at the Grosvenor House. That's in that moment. I didn't have a very long transition between losing one job and then becoming a professional magician. It was literally that day. I did a show at the Grosvenor House, and I thought, what am I faffling around for? I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing the one thing I'm good at. This was in 1991.
Wow.
And then I got into the protocol of what it means to be a professional magician.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on-the-job training.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said that night you were at the Grosvenor doing your show. So does that mean that you had a big interest in magic before, as you were doing the
magic was my hobby for a good 10, 15 years. I was practicing sleight of hand from about 1978, but I'd seen David Nixon on television in the early 1970s. Mm-hmm. 1978 was a turning point because that Christmas, I got Cyan Fields Entertaining Card Magic, the book. My mother also purchased for me Stars of Magic. Nice. Big blue book from Tannen's, and then I saw Slidini on television. But I was already going to magic shops around that time. That's when I met L&L, and then Alan was intrigued because he saw my excitement at seeing Slidini on television, and from that moment on he took an interest in my magical development. But it was my hobby. I had day jobs and so forth. But magic was always my hobby, practicing, performing, until 91 when I gave up the day jobs because it was just knackering, tiring, you know, so.
So when you said it wasn't such a big transition, was it still quite scary knowing that now you were going to do that full time?
That's a very good point, because when my contract was terminated as a postman, I had nothing else to fall back on except the one thing I was good at. I had no business knowledge, no business acumen. That is something I learned on the job of being a professional magician. So I had to learn some new skills. Took me a long time to get my head. It's like your brain split into two halves. You got the show, you got the business, and they've got to support each other.
So what's one piece of advice that you would have given yourself then? So let's say Michael Vincent is a postie and he's just been given the sack, right? At that moment, 1,000 things would have been going through your brain. What's one piece of advice that you would give yourself back then, knowing everything that you know now?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, because the person looking at that story back then, I've evolved into this person that's talking to you now. As I look at myself back then in my late 20s, early 30s, I'm astonished at how ignorant I was. I didn't know anything about anything. The only thing I knew was how to do magic. That's all I knew. What would I say to myself? I'm going to say something.